Houston, 1 minute to LOS, all systems go. Ignition, roger ignition.
Here we had 2 minutes, 23 seconds. Hard, clean one.
All right, Houston, you're looking good.
Hello again, YouTube. You know, when you get to the stage where you've got to make videos telling people about your new bicycle pump, your life's probably missing something, isn't it? So sit back and relax whilst I tell you about my new bicycle pump, and just be thankful that your life is probably more full than mine. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I kind of have this on-off relationship with Tubeless. I've had it on both my mountain bikes and was a big fan, still am a big fan, but I just think it's got a couple of real drawbacks. And one of those is actually getting the tyres fitted to the rims. So if you've fitted Tubeless, or if you've watched any videos on fitting Tubeless, you know one of the first things you've got to do is to get that tyre snapped into the bead. The bead of the tyre snapped into the rim to make your airtight seal there. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can use a track pump if you're some sort of superhuman. I've seen that done. Really only with road tyres. I think you'd be hard pushed on a high volume mountain bike tyre to do that, unless you really are some sort of superhuman. The other way that you can do it is with an air compressor. That seems to be, you know, conventional wisdom says that's a really good way to do it. I've had mixed results with that. I've got my own air compressor, but it is a bit of an eBay special, and I find that it's just really hard to get it to discharge quickly enough to snap the tyre out. Of course, another way that you could do it is good old CO2 canisters, but you know that gets quite costly, and if the tyre doesn't seat first time, you can well go through a box of canisters trying to get the thing seated. And then you come on to these kind of what I call hybrid solutions. Now popularly these are referred to, I believe, as tubeless tyre inflators. And a lot of these look like just a tank on their own. In fact, they look like a little bit of mini scuba gear or something like that. And essentially, I guess that's what they are. They're just an air reservoir that you fill, I think, either from a compressor or from a track pump. So you pump them up, you know, you bring them up to pressure, and then you've just got a simple valve. Attach that to your tyre, wallop, open the valve, all the air goes in, tyre snaps out, job's a good one. And then, of course, there's the other solution, which is a proper hybrid solution, which is a pump that incorporates an air tank. And I'd always wanted one of these because I thought that would be better than my air compressor. Because, like I say, I've had mixed results with the air compressor, plus the fact, I mean, with electricity and everything going through the roof, you really don't want to be charging up a tank of air if you're only going to use a little bit of it to inflate a tyre. So, you know, for me, one of these pumps that incorporates an air tank seemed to be the ideal solution. The only problem with that is they are really expensive. Well, they are unless you're a Planet X fanboy. So enter the Jobsworth. Let me look the name of this up. So, you ready for this? Enter the Jobsworth Push It Real Good Tubeless 230 psi floor pump. This thing here. Now, this is... Let's put this one in. This thing here is one of those air tank pumps. So you've got an air reservoir inside this that you can compress or charge, shall I say, and you've then got a valve that you can open. Let me just show you. You've got that valve there that you can open to either put it like that. You charge in the air reservoir, go like that, you dump all the air into the tyre. So this comes in at just under 50 quid here in the UK. And that to me seems like a real bargain, because if you look at the other options, generally just the air tanks on their own are about 50 quid. So when I saw that for having both the air tank in it and the track pump built in, I thought that's got to be worth a go for 50 quid. So even though Planet X have clearly built this down to a price, it doesn't feel particularly cheap. And I'll give you a good example of that. If you look at the pump head there, I'll just focus on that. So, the pump head, it feels like the rest of it, feels really solid. You've got a lovely positive action and a nice alloy lever there for your pump head. Even the charge discharge lever there is alloy and doesn't feel cheap at all. And you've got this nifty design. So you've got on one side you've got Presta and Dunlop, and if you simply unscrew that and turn it round, you have Schrader. And like I say, that does not feel cheap at all, and the action on both the levers feels really nice and tight. And in terms of ergonomics, you've got a lovely big clear dial there. Even I can read that without glasses. A nice good wide handle, which you're going to need because you can charge this thing up to let's have a look, what's the max charge on it? You could go up to about 18 bar on the tank, so it gets a little bit tough to get putting pressure into it once you get past about 12 bar. But even the body is, a real nice solid alloy. And I just couldn't resist that little intro, because when I opened the box and took this out, there were definitely shades of NASA stroke Apollo about it with its black and white colour scheme. The foot is wide enough to get my foot on and keep it stable when I'm pumping, and you've even got some nice touches, like that head clips nicely into the body there for storage. So what's it like to use? So for the tests I was doing with this pump, I wanted to get a fair representation across a road bike and a mountain bike wheel. So we've got a couple of test subjects here. Firstly, we've got my old mountain bike, my Triple B. I love this bike, even though the condition of it doesn't seem to suggest that, does it? But what I'm going to be testing it on is the front wheel here, which is tubeless. The back is running a smart tube at the moment, but the front is still tubeless. So that will be a good test subject. This is a 27.5 tyre on here. So yeah, a good representation of a mountain bike wheel. So for the road bike, I've got this old Bontrager wheel here with a matching tyre, and this is tubed, but it should give us a fairly good representation of how much air this is going to put into a road bike tyre. So the first test I did was, how long was it going to take me to get this thing full of air? How many pump strokes? So as you can see here, it took about 14 pump strokes to get this from completely empty, 0 reading on the dial, to pressurized to about 14 bars, so just into the red there. What I would say is, as you get up towards that sort of red section, the gauge is warning you don't go a lot further, but the pump is warning you also, because you really have to put a lot of weight into that to get some air in there once you get up there. But if you compare this with sort of like the Joe Blow pump I put on screen earlier, I think the Joe Blow goes up to about 11 bar. So, we're taking this 3 bar higher. That's considerably more, isn't it? So, I guess it figures that there would be a proportional increase in effort to do that. So looking at the mountain bike tyre, as you can see, this shot a load of air into the tyre very quickly and took a completely flat tyre to about 5-ish psi really quickly. So I'd say that there was enough pressure there to you know, if you had a completely dry tyre that you were fitting to the rim, there's probably just enough pressure there to snap it out. Obviously there's not enough pressure there to ride it unless you're running extremely low pressures. But the really good thing about this pump is that once you've dumped all of the pressure out of the tank into the tyre, you get a reading on the gauge of where the tyre is in terms of pressure, and you just keep pumping like a normal track pump until you get to the pressure you want. On the road bike, a similar story. Absolutely no trouble inflating the tyre, and as I say, with both of these tests, this is with the valve core still in. So if you imagine if the valve core was out, you know, you'd get a much more rapid inflation of the tyre, which would definitely help if you were trying to seat the bead. But yeah, with the road bike tyre, absolutely no problems inflating it. In fact, took it up to 40 psi, and it took a couple more strokes of the pump to get it up to about 80, which is, I guess, about right for a 25mm tyre on a road bike. So, in terms of operation, it definitely does what it says on the tin. If there were any sort of comments I'd make about it, I think the air tank is probably okay for road tyres. As you saw with my 27.5 mountain bike tyre, I think it's kind of at the top of its range. And it was only, you know, once it had dumped the air into it and got the shape back into it, it was getting that thing to about 5 psi. So, you know, I wonder how that would cope with seating a tubeless tyre on that rim. The only other observation that I would make is that the Presta head is just a little bit tight on this. And how that manifests itself is that when I'm fitting tubeless, I like to, when I'm putting the air in, generally take the core out of the valve, you know, just whip it out as I did in that other video the other week. And the reason for that is, with that valve core out of the way, you've got much less of a restriction, so you can get much more air in. And what I find is that with most of my Presta valves in my tubes and wheels, that Presta adapter on that pump head is just too narrow to go comfortably over and seat properly over the actual valve stem itself, rather than around the valve core. So, you know, but as you saw, it coped fine with the road wheel, and it did an okay job on the 27.5 mountain bike wheel. So just a couple of observations there. And in terms of capacity, tank capacity, well, I guess that's what you pay for with a more expensive pump. Whether, you know, it's worth paying 2 or 3 times as much as I paid for that little bit of extra capacity you get on some of those other pumps, I don't know. I'd like to try one back to back to find out, but definitely for my needs, I think that's perfectly adequate pump. Anyway, thanks for watching this one. There's going to be a little bit of a break coming up. I'm off to Scotland in a week's time with a good mate of mine. We're going to take off to the hills and do some walking. So watch out for maybe some daily videos just talking about that trip. And then after that, normal service will hopefully resume with more on the Free Ranger. I am actually thinking of fitting the flared bars. Still a little bit in two minds about that, but I'm considering fitting those, so there's possibly that coming up. Plus also, I'm looking at the possibility of getting a dropper post for it. So yeah, keep watching for that one. As always, I really appreciate you watching these videos, and as always, if you've made it this far, you have my admiration, respect, and probably need to get out more. Thanks for watching, YouTube. Catch you in the next.